Sabres are big favorites tonight against the Anaheim Ducks, and they got a big break. We'll talk about what that break was, injury updates, and more coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Appreciate everyone making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. That includes our YouTube channel where you could watch the show as well. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Sneaky Joe DiBiase, of course, coming to you on today's show. Preview edition of the episode as we look ahead to the Anaheim Ducks, a 10 o'clock puck drop on Friday night. Why the Sabres are getting a big break in this game, what we have to look forward to, the odds for tonight's game. I got my parlay a little bit later on and some injury updates as well. The Sabres have just wrapped up their practice in Anaheim ahead of tonight's game, 10 o'clock puck drop against the Ducks. If you would like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, if you want to get line updates, you want to get injury updates, who the other team is starting in goal, you want to throw me a rant, or you just want some banter back and forth during a game, especially those injury updates. Not everybody can stay glued to social media every second of every day. In fact, it's probably healthy if you don't do that. So if you want to know, hey, is Tage Thompson playing tonight? Is Alex Tuch going to play tonight? What line is Yuri Kulik going to be on? And you don't want to be glued to Twitter every second of the day, sign up for our text club. We send those out to you in the middle of the day when the practice is happening. If you want to sign up, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place to sign up. Works on all phones, all carriers, everything. So, go check it out. So, we got a lot to get to on tonight's game. The Ducks, a team that's on a 3-game win streak, a team that you might look at the record and say, oh, not that bad. Not that bad of a hockey team. But if you look a little deeper, I think you're going to find a team that is a team the Sabres should beat. And I think tonight's odds reflect that, by the way. So, lot to get to. Standings update, by the way, very quickly off the top, and then one around the league note before we get rolling for tonight's game. Since the Sabres played last, since we spoke last, I should say, the Sabres are no longer in a playoff spot. At this moment in time, they are 2 points back. Boston winning last night goes up 21 points in 21 games for the Bruins. Also, Tampa loses in overtime. So they're at 22 points in 18 games. So the Sabres 2 points behind Boston and 3 behind the Lightning at this point in time. Boston in a wild card spot, the Lightning in the third position in the Atlantic Division. The around the league note, 27 goals back of Wayne Gretzky's record. Alex Ovechkin injured the other night, and we found out from the Capitals that he was going to be week to week. But now we have a more specific timeline on that. He is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So, such a bummer. I mean, he's going to have to be right there at the top of the league pace in goals when he comes back to catch that record this year. My guess is that's too much time for Ovechkin to miss this year, where he will have enough time to catch Gretzky this season. And Ovechkin, by the way, this is like the most serious injury of his career, which is another thing that just makes it so disheartening. If you want him to break the record like I do, he has not missed. He has not missed more than 10 games in a season his entire career. I think I have that right. Sometimes it's tough to tell with those COVID years, but I think judging, I don't think he's ever missed more than 10 games due to injury in a single year. Any full 82 game season, the fewest amount of games he's ever played is 72. And that came 14 years ago. Every other year, 79, 73, 77, 81, 82, 82. He's played 82 and not missed the full game 4 years of his career. Like, he doesn't miss games. So this is new for Ovechkin. We'll see what he looks like when he comes back. The Sabres play the Capitals early on in January, so for that game, the Sabres are probably not going to play Alex Ovechkin. Let's get to tonight's game between the Sabres and the Ducks. There is one big thing that's happening in this game. the goaltending decision on Anaheim's side. The Sabres, I think, are getting a very big break in this game. The Ducks are a team in general that are punching above their weight class. They are not as good as their record. They are a team that if I were to do league-wide power rankings, we do, once every other week or so, we do Eastern Conference power rankings here on the show. If I did league-wide power rankings, this would be a team that even while they're winning these hockey games lately, I would not be moving up in my power rankings. I would have them near the bottom of the league even still because they're winning because of goaltending. They're winning because of shooting percentage as well, but they are not a great hockey team. On paper, they're a bad hockey team, and I think that eventually you're going to start to see that represented more in the standings. Looking at the Ducks for the year, if you want to look at whether it's expected goals for percentage on the season, where do they rank? 32nd in the NHL. If you want to look at shot attempt percentage, Corsi for percentage, where do they rank? 31st in the NHL. Shot share, they're 30th in the NHL. They're bottom 3 in almost any underlying metric that you'll find, except shooting percentage and save percentage. Shooting percentage, it's not like they're the luckiest team in the league with that. They have a 7.6% shooting percentage. They score on 76% of their goals. That is 22nd in the NHL. So a little lucky. All their other numbers would say they're bottom 3, and in shooting percentage, they're bottom 10. So I might think that comes down a little bit as the season goes on. And then save percentage is the big one. The Ducks on the year have the 4th best save percentage in the NHL at 5-on-5. And that is what is carrying them in these games. That is how they are sitting currently with a 500 record. And most of that, in fact, almost all of that, is Lukas Dostal. Young goaltender, 3rd-round pick a couple of years ago, up-and-coming young guy, prospect goalie for them over the last couple of years that is just this year starting to take hold of the net. He has been unbelievable so far this year. In fact, Dostal, you could argue, and if you trust in the numbers like I do on goaltending, Dostal's the best goalie in the NHL this season. And he is not playing against the Sabres tonight. It will be John Gibson playing against the Sabres tonight, who, by the way, this isn't even really a Gibson stinks point. Gibson, I think, has definitely gone down in the caliber of player he is since what he was early on in his career, but he's not terrible. It's more about Dostal. Dostal this year in 13 starts for the Ducks has a .924 save percentage. And then this is the big number. Goals saved above expected on the season. Dostal, 17.21 goals saved above expected. In his games, a league average goalie would give up 17 more goals than he has. He is number 1 in the NHL in goals saved above expected with 17.2, and it's by an enormous gulf. He is 4.44 goals better in goals saved above expected than the number 2 goalie in the league. He's not just number 1. He's number 1 by an enormous margin. And he's not playing tonight. It's going to be Gibson. Gibson, by the way, again, as I mentioned, he's not bad. Gibson this year, only 3 starts. He was dealing with an injury at the beginning of the year. He's got a couple starts even in the last week where he's been decent. .906 save percentage for Gibson in 3 starts. And he is .08 goals saved above expected. So, he's fine. Gibson's been fine, and he's been fine the last couple of years, I think. He's always had the tough task of being the Ducks goaltender, a team that gives up a lot of scoring chances over the years. But I think the Sabres are catching a big break this year, or tonight, by not playing who I believe, if you trust in the numbers, and I tend to, is the best goalie in the NHL to start the season. They are not playing Lukas Dostal tonight, so big break. Now, some other stuff about the Ducks going into this year. We want to look at some of their surface numbers on the year, if you will. The Ducks this year are getting a big contribution again from Troy Terry. He is kind of developed into their best offensive player all around. He was that for the last couple of years as well. 54 points last year, 61 the year before that, 67 the year before that. And this year he's leading the way with 12 in 18 games. Nothing crazy, not like a not like a Hart Trophy guy by any means. Don't get me wrong there. Probably not even an all-star. Maybe he would make the all-star team because somebody's got it from the Ducks, although, as I just mentioned, Dostal should be the one that makes the all-star team if somebody does. They have a nice young group, though, that's upcoming. And some of them are rookies, but the couple of names to keep an eye on for the Ducks as they try to, they've been in a rebuild for a while now, and they're trying to exit out of that. Leo Carlsson, who's got 6 goals on the year, 20 years old still, is a name to watch. Cutter Gauthier, who they got from the Flyers last year in a prospect trade. He didn't want to sign with Philly, gets traded to Anaheim. Gauthier has 8 points in 18 games this year. Mason McTavish, who I've had in fantasy over the past couple of years, a couple of 40-point seasons for him. He was a 3rd overall pick in 2021. This year, a little bit of a slow start, but he's picked it up in the last 5 games, really. He's got 5 points in 5 games. McTavish is a very good young player. And then a player that I don't know a lot about, Olen Zellweger, who is playing almost 20 minutes a night, 8 points this year in 17 games from the blue line. He was a 2nd-round pick a couple of years ago. He's a smaller guy, 5'9", 182. I like those small defensemen, so I'm excited to watch him. I've watched a little bit of Ducks hockey this year, but nothing crazy. So excited to watch them and him for a full game for the first time this year. The Ducks don't scare me, though. They do not scare me. They should not scare Sabre fans. I think, despite their record, it would be a bad loss. First of a back-to-back. It's not the second of a back-to-back. The first of a back-to-back, it would be a bad loss. The Ducks lines for this game, Leo Carlsson is their top-line center. Trevor Zegras on the left. Alex Killorn on the right. Ryan Strome with Frank Vetrano and Troy Terry on line 2. Cutter Gauthier's on the 3rd line left wing. Isak Lundstrom and Brett Leeson is their 3rd line. And then their blue line, other than Radko Gudas and then Zellweger, who I just mentioned, there's not a lot of names really to mention here. A team that I think is reliant on their top goaltender that will not have that goaltender between the pipes in tonight's game. The Sabres have 2 games against bad teams, the Ducks and the Sharks. It is the perfect opportunity for a clean sweep on a West Coast trip where they already beat the best team they're going to face. It's going to me, be about getting the Ducks tonight, and then finding a way to beat a bad team on a back-to-back. Back-to-backs are tough, and teams have a lower win percentage on back-to-backs throughout time, but 2 bad teams, back-to-back nights, playoff teams should be able to get that job done. When we come back, the Sabres lineup for tonight, news on the injury front, and then I've got a couple of bets that I really like for tonight's game as we continue to preview Sabres and Ducks coming your way on Friday night at 10 o'clock ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Gametime. Check out the Gametime app. Hey, if you're a Sabre fan out on the West Coast and maybe you think, a couple of bad teams, you want to go to one of these games, well, then go check it out on the Gametime app. Story for you. My coworker Sal Capaccio from WGR, he is going to Sabres and Sharks tomorrow, but because he's going to be in the Bay Area and thought, the Sharks, okay, that's a bad team. Maybe the tickets will be cheap. And he looks and he goes, look how expensive tickets are. Why is that? Tomorrow is Joe Thornton's jersey retirement ceremony. So if you're in that situation, maybe you're a Sabre fan out west, you're like, let me go to the Sharks game, and you see, whoa, why are tickets expensive? Joe Thornton jersey retirement night. Well, if you go to the Gametime app, that's where you'll have your best chance of saving money because of all the great deals that Gametime provides you. Gametime Picks is a new feature that filters out all the fluff. It only shows you the incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to filter through and search through all these thousands and thousands of tickets, many of which are going to be super expensive. Gametime is going to filter out, give you the best deals imaginable. Check out Gametime. They have the seat views, so you know exactly what angle you're going to be looking at and their lowest price guarantee. If you find a ticket for less, in the same rower section, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, Sabres and Ducks coming your way Friday night at 10 o'clock. The Sabres line up for tonight's game, and then I want to talk a little bit about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen coming up. No changes from Tuesday night in LA. The Sabres were maybe I thought going to get Tage Thompson back from injury in this one, but that is not happening. So Thompson, let's talk about him for a moment here, because I got a text question that I want to read on the air here about Thompson, who practiced again on Friday night, and Friday afternoon, Friday morning, I guess, out in Anaheim. Thompson, though, not taking line rushes, and Lindy Ruff confirming that Thompson will not play against the Ducks. So that is 3 practices in a row now that Thompson has gotten in without playing in a game. So I got one question of, should we be worried about this with Tage? Is it more serious than we know? Little weird that he's practicing and he's not playing. And I understand the question, because it isn't normal, I think, that you would see a guy get 3 practices in before playing in a game. But here's why I'm not worried. I think it makes total sense that Thompson is not playing in this game because of the circumstances that surround him not playing. You want to tell me 3 practices is weird? Okay. Is it weird, though, that a guy coming back from injury would play 1 of 2 games when you have 2 games within 24 hours of each other? Ask yourself that question, because that's not weird to me. The Sabres tomorrow night will play the Sharks at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So by the time the Ducks game ends at, say, 12:30, right? 12:30 Eastern time, we're talking about much less than a 24-hour turnaround. We're talking more about a 19-and-a-half-hour turnaround between the Friday game and the Saturday game. Him coming back from injury, all it says to me is they want to be cautious with him. And I think that makes sense, given that in 2 straight seasons, last year and the year prior, Tage Thompson has been injured and rushed back from injury. And both times, well, actually, the first time you could argue, or you could say, he never got healthy because the injury was late in the year. He went to the wing with Cousins. They moved Middlestat up to first-line center because they were 1 point out of the playoffs and they were trying to make it. So Tage rushed back. Never that season got back to full health. Short amount of time. Last year, the season was going off the rails. The story goes that and this is well documented, Tage returned early from injury because he felt like he had to be there for the team because he saw the season going off the rails. And then he scored 29 goals instead of probably 40 plus because he played a lot of those games before he probably should have. So it would make sense to me the Sabres don't want to just get him back in. They want to make sure he's 100% healthy. They don't want him playing through injury and elongating the time that he's dealing with something. So I'm not worried at all that Thompson is not playing yet. If he doesn't play tomorrow, that would be a little strange to me. That I won't lie about that. That would be a little strange to me, but I think I'd still want to fall back on they're just being cautious because this is a player that's rushed back from injury 2 years in a row. So the lines are the same. McLeod, Tuck, and Peterka up top. Cousins, Benson, and Lafferty on line 2. Kulik, Quinn, and Zucker on line 3. Krebs, Malenstein, Obe, Kubel on line 4. As Finn tries to announce them as well. Rasmus Dahlin and Bo Byram on the top pair. Power, Yoki Harrier. They're going to run that back. I do not like that pair at all. I think Yoki Harrier should be on the 3rd pair. Bryson and Clifton on the 3rd pair. And then Luukkonen in goal. So Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to be in goal for this game. And he has been on fire as of late. We talked about this a little bit on our last show. But Luukkonen, in his last 4 games. So it's a new feature we're going to do on our preview episodes. Who am I locked in on? You know, Locked On Podcast Network. It makes sense, right? Who am I locked in on for tonight's game? And I am locked in on Luukkonen because he has been carrying the Sabres to victory in a couple of these games. He has returned to the peak form that we saw last year. And he's done it in 4 straight healthy games. I got to put a little bit of the caveat there in because we all know Lindy confirmed it and we saw the result of it. He missed a couple games after. He was not healthy when they played Montreal last Friday. And he missed the 3rd period. They took him out. If you take that game out and just say Luukkonen's last 4 healthy games, he has allowed 4 goals. He has a .964 save percentage. And he has saved 8.96 goals saved above expected. He should, on an average goaltender in those 4 games, would have allowed roughly 13 goals. And he's allowed 4. That is incredible production from your goaltender in the last 2 weeks. So ride him into this game against the Ducks. And then I think you want James Reimer to play just to not fry him completely against the Sharks on Saturday. So I'm guessing Reimer plays tomorrow, but we are getting Luukkonen here against the Ducks. So goalie advantage, Sabres. Luukkonen over Gibson. If Dostal had been playing, I'd think you'd have to say Ducks just because Dostal's been that good, but he's not. Again, I think that's a huge deal. When we come back, some of the lines for tonight's game and a stat on the betting odds for the Sabres. The Sabres are a huge favorite tonight, and a little bit more on that when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We're going to get into my parlay of the day, Sneaky Parlay for Sabres and Ducks. We'll talk about some of the odds. All of that's going to be courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. And if you're thinking you like a player for tonight, if you're, thinking Paterka's due, or, I liked Dylan Cousins the other night, and you want some good odds on that, then you can check out all those anytime goal prop bets. You can check out shots on goal bets, goalie bets, anything, all available to you on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. And it's football, of course, as well. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook's got you covered with all the NFL action. Right now, new customers get bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game or in tonight's Sabres game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com, join today, get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, Sabres and Ducks tonight. Here are some of the lines on tonight's game, courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The Sabres are minus 164 on the money line. The Ducks are plus 136. The Buffalo Sabres are favored by more this season than they have been in any game on the road. The Sabres, in fact, I had to go back to last year to find when the Sabres have last been this favored on the road. And at, again, minus 164, where'd it go? Minus 164. The Sabres have not been favored by that much on the road since it was at Florida late last year. No, wait, sorry, they were an underdog by that much. What was the game? I'll find it for you by the end here. But it's been a long time. It's been like a calendar year since the Sabres have been favored by this much on the road. In fact, here it is. It was at Anaheim, January 23rd. They were minus 169 on the road. So the Sabres have not been favored by this much on the road since the last time they were in Anaheim. This line speaks to the Ducks and why you should not buy in on their record. They are not a 500 hockey team. Sure, their record is right now, but that is not going to stay the same. They are going to drop down, and their goaltending is going to regress a little bit. Dostal's playing at an unsustainable rate. They're going to play Gibson, and Gibson's pretty good, but he's not that good anymore. They're going to fall down a little bit, and that's reflected in this line. The Sabres don't even have Tage Thompson for this game, and they're favored by that much. Minus 164 is a big number in the NHL. The over-under for this game, 6.5 goals, plus 102 on the over, minus 124 on the under. So the under is favored for this game. So I've got my sneaky parlay for tonight's game against the Ducks. If you're looking through some of the odds, by the way, you're wondering who's most likely to score a goal. Tuch, surprisingly, is actually the most likeliest to score a goal by the odds. He's plus 165. JJ Paterka is second at plus 175. And then Troy Terry of the Ducks is third at plus 230, if you're interested in any of those. My sneaky parlay of tonight's game, though, I am going with the Sabres on the puck line. So minus a goal and a half. I'm taking the Sabres to win this game by 2 or more. I'm trusting in the underlying numbers. The Sabres are a far better hockey team. Sabres are a middle-of-the-road hockey team, and a lot of those numbers, expected goals for, Corsi for percentage, they average out to about a middle-of-the-road hockey team. The Ducks average out to about one of the worst teams in the league. I'm trusting in that. I am taking the Sabres with a couple of days rest here to go into Anaheim and beat the Ducks by 2 goals or more. I am taking the over on 6.5 goals in this game. I think you're going to see some positive regression from the other night. You'll see more chances from the Sabres. You're going to see lesser goaltending from John Gibson. And I don't think Luukkonen's playing at a sustainable rate right now, so I see him giving up like 2. in this game. I see like a 5-2 score for the Sabres in this one, give or take. And then I'm going to go with Rasmus Dahlin to record a point in this game. That's it. Dahlin to record a point. I didn't want to go crazy long shot bet with the third leg of tonight's game. I didn't love any of the goal bets, so I went with Dahlin to get a point. Dahlin, that would not be, not be rare at all. Dahlin is actually right now riding a 7-game point streak. He has not played a game without a point since they were in Detroit 20 days ago. So at 7 games in a row, Dahlin's recorded a point, and I've got him doing it again in this one. All of that together gets you to plus 435. So 10 to win 43, 100 to win 435, and so on and so forth. That's tonight's bet. Let's get one. Let's get a parlay in. Let's get a win in here. That's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres and the Ducks enjoy the game, and we hope to be talking to you after a Sabres win against Anaheim. Here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out our sister shows, whether that's Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Steal and Flip got you covered throughout the week with your daily fantasy tips, or Joe Marino with Locked On Bills as he talks post-bye stuff with the Bills as they we'll get ready for the Niners next week. Listen to them on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.